Welcome to the EdTech Unpacked podcast, where we aim to inspire and equip educators to create learning experiences highlighting a thoughtful approach to the integration of technology as we teach and transform the lives of our students.
We are so glad that you're joining us for this episode, where we are going to be unpacking LMSs, also known as learning management systems. And most importantly, we want you to know how to use them effectively in your classroom to enhance student experiences. I'm Desmond, and I work at Richmond Academy, where I've been teaching for over a decade. I stopped counting. I teach religion, social studies, computers, videography, and sometimes more. I am a very proud graduate of Southern Adventist University with a bachelor's degree in religious education and a minor in computers. And I have a master's of instructional systems and learning technology. I always think it sounds over prestigious, but from the great Florida State University. And I really love helping people learn so that they can fulfill the greatest potential that God has for them. And finding the best tools to accomplish this. Now, it might sound like it, but Aaron did not copy my degree path. Go ahead, Aaron.
Not on purpose anyway, but
you did
it's
it
kind of
first,
funny.
So right. There you go.
So I've been teaching at Burton Adventist Academy for just over a decade as well.
There you go.
Actually was a graduate here back in the day, 1997. Shout out class of 97. So graduated from Burton Adventist Academy, went to Southwestern Adventist University in Keene, Texas, where I'm also currently an adjunct professor there. And went on to, I guess, let me mention, you gave such a good overview there. I'll try to do the same. Graduated with a religion major, later went on to complete my education degree. So I didn't quite finish the race at that point, but I got hired anyway. So, went on to complete my master's degree from Walden University, and my master's is in instructional design and technology. Really similar, same field, different title, pretty much the same master's degree that Desmond has there. And that's why we kind of joke. We both did religion and then instructional design and technology. And so I've been here a little over 10 years at Burton Adventist Academy and have taught my entire career until this year is the first year I'm completely out of the classroom. Taught mainly junior high here at Burton Academy, and served as our junior high vice principal for a number of years. And now I am our director of recruitment and development. So basically I get to help build community relationships and create sustainable growth, which is a total blast. It's kind of a dream job for me. So similar to you, Desmond, I love team building. I love inspiring other educators and really just creating a group of educators who are moving in the same direction, to fulfill our mission. And that is to minister to kids, to build relationships with them and help them as well see a loving relationship with Jesus and help them want that. And so that's the goal. That's the desire. Amen.
Very cool. Well, so this week, go ahead.
Who's going to introduce it? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and jump into this week's topic here. We are talking about learning management systems, also known as LMSs. I was going to throw this to you, though, and say, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be talking about LMSs today. I feel like it's one of the nerdy intrigues I have, the nerdy hobbies. I think it's so fascinating to talk about how to use this organizational tool. And if you haven't experienced learning management systems very much, I encourage you to spend more time with them. But it helps to organize and present your content. And I think both of us have been power users of learning management systems. And so it's the brief summary is that it's the place where all your students go to find all their materials, all their homework, all their and they submit their homework, their assessments. We put all of our content on there and gradebook, and really it's like the central hub of all my instruction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to teach without one.
I can't imagine. Honestly, I think about backing up at this point. I don't know how I would do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I think all the things you just shared are the things I would have shared too, but depending on the LMS, some are very light and slim and have very few features like Google Classroom. That's what we use here at Burton Academy. Some LMSs are super robust, really too robust in a lot of settings. And so across the board, there's all kinds of features and bells and whistles. And, our goal here today isn't really to do a tutorial on how to use a certain LMS, but really to help frame it. What value is it? What place does it have in your classroom? And that can vary a little bit. One of the things Desmond and I have talked about is depending on the age, grade level you teach, that might impact your usage and whether or not you use an LMS. And so, Desmond, have you given this much thought in terms of if it was you teaching, let's say, second grade versus seventh grade, where does that cutoff come in terms of, hey, I'd use one or maybe I wouldn't?
Well, I think first it helps to explain kind of the technology philosophy we have at Richmond Academy where I teach, where we have a lot of technology integrated into everything we do, but we also recognize that too much technology at the wrong time, the wrong place is not worth it, isn't valuable. And so, the very youngest kid, we go through pre-K through 12 at our school. And in pre-K, there's very little technology use, especially hands-on for the students. And then like in kindergarten, first and second, they start to get some station work where they'll use an iPad to do some activities sometimes. And most of the time, those grades, I don't think have much purpose for learning management systems. And then kind of our third through sixth grade, we start to give some assignments in it. And our guest today is actually one of our teachers who has a very great approach of using a learning management system at that younger age. And then in eighth grade, actually third through eighth grade, they have one-to-one devices, but they don't use them all the time. And so eighth grade, they use them a little more. They have a lot of assignments submitted through them, but not all of them. And then in high school, we are like, I won't accept any assignments in high school if it's not submitted on the learning management system. Everything is done through the learning management system, and I have to have it. I need it. So I think it's okay to say like, the younger kids, we're going to integrate some of it, but not all of it, and to have a progressive approach to using the learning management system.
Well, I appreciate that, it's philosophy driven, and that's really intentional, and that's the way it should be. Every school is going to sort that out a little differently. What I have seen from visiting schools and attending workshops, like, I'm sure we've both kind of had different perspectives shared by various schools and teachers. I feel like the third and fourth grade level is about where most schools that have a one-to-one program, that's where they start to implement iPads, Chromebooks, one-to-one devices in a more substantial way. That may not mean an LMS. A lot of times it's, one-off experiences. Let's go to IXL, and you're locking the kids into one learning experience, not necessarily pushing them through a learning management system. But, by the time you get into junior high, I would say the vast majority of schools that have a one-to-one device program, they're pretty much learning heavily. Now, you mentioned up through eighth grade, it's not the expectation. They're experiencing it, but it's not where everything is housed, per se. Now, here at Burton Academy, we do pretty much everything on the iPad starting in sixth grade. So that's kind of where we break it, real similar to what you were describing there. Language arts is always kind of one of those areas that might be a little different because the kids, you're going to still want them writing, getting some experience outside of the devices, but for the most part, they get all of their assignments there through the LMS. They turn everything in there. It's a central hub, and really key reason why it's so effective in terms of accountability. And as we all know, junior high students could use some extra accountability.
Really?
For parents to see. Yeah, right. Parents love to see. They love the trail and being able to point them to one place and say, listen, if it's not here, it's not turned in, and it's time stamped, and the teacher feedback is there. It's so valuable. Those are the things I can't imagine now, doing without. And
that is a very valuable part of a learning management system, is that the parents can see what the students are doing. I love it when my students come to my classroom and are like, Mrs. Suarez, last night at dinner time, we were discussing as a family the thing that we discussed in class the other day. And I have these thoughts. My dad or my mom or my siblings said this interesting thing about it. Well, and I love, parent teacher conferences, like reminding or telling the parents, here's what we've been studying. And then the parents say, oh, yeah, my son or daughter talks about that all the time. Like, that's when I'm like, yeah. And a learning management system really helps to include the parents in the conversation, whether it is like the content you're teaching and get the parents to be involved in that conversation with their students, with their children, but also the making sure they have their assignment submitted, you have the accountability. And as the teacher, you don't have to email back from every assignment like, hey, this is what we're doing at a younger age. But the parents get to see exactly what's going on. And that's very helpful, especially for the younger kids.
Looping the parents in, it's not only possible, but it's just become the central part of the why for me. Why have this tool in place? To start every year, we've created a Google Classroom video for our junior high parents, and we kind of take them through the pieces, how it relates to our SIS, and how they can see when stuff's turned in, when it's not. Depending on the LMS, kids can mark stuff done and it's not done. It's not turned in. That's how Google Classroom runs.
Oh, that's always a fun conversation.
That's a fun one, right? So we take the parents through that in a how-to video, and we show them, listen, this is something that happens. Sometimes kids mean to, sometimes they don't. But if you see it over and over, then you're going to need to tune in, and here's how to watch for it. But the accountability piece, it's invaluable. Now, I want to jump to something else here. And I might throw myself this question first because I'm anxious to answer it, but I'd like to hear your take on this too. And it's how an LMS relates to teacher lesson plans.
Oh man.
We've had, this is a great one. We've debated it at the school level, within our conference, the broader oversight of our school here. This is something we all wrestle with. You don't want to duplicate your activities as a teacher. That's key. I don't want to do something here and then basically redo it over here. One's for me, one's for the students. I would much rather develop better lesson plans in my LMS and ditch a secondary lesson plan tool. Because let's be honest, most of the things we do in a teacher lesson plan fit really well into an LMS. There might be some private notes for yourself and whatnot. You have to figure out how to handle that. But in the end, that's what many schools are doing. They're ditching the teacher lesson plan tool for just robust usage of an LMS. How have you kind of processed this, Desmond?
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. And I'm ashamed to talk about my lack of lesson plans outside of an LMS, except that I very much have done that. And I guess I'll kind of start with a gripe to the LMSs. If we are blessed to have an engineer on our team or listening to the podcast, like that's something that, there's lesson planning software out there that I've looked at, but I always stop short of like, well, it's not in my LMS. Like, I don't want to copy and paste. And that seems just like such massively missing feature of having lesson plans integrated straight into my LMS where I can just drag them over and stuff. So I guess in the comments, if you know about an LMS that has lesson plans built into it, a full featured LMS, I'd be looking to jump to that. But I think that, it's formatted and styled differently, but I use my content very much like that. And maybe this is a good time to jump into the demonstration. You want to show us how you use Google Classroom to do that?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll try to keep it a little more broad, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to kind of give you the why and the vision for this if you're not using an LMS or you're not using it as your lesson plan tool as well, without hitting a few key highlights that might feel a little nitty gritty, but I think it's important. So we're going to try to keep this short. Let's dive into Google Classroom and take a look. All right, so we're diving into an 8th grade math class. Now, keep in mind, this is a copy of a class, so this isn't live. So if I go to my People tab, you're not going to see real students. You're just going to see me for the purposes of demonstration. And I'm going to jump over to my classwork tab because really this is where I'd like to demonstrate to you kind of some setup, some best practices that just make your life easy and kind of, again, show the why and how this integrates with lesson planning. So we have different topics, and most LMSs have the ability to create tags or topics. Some have the ability to tag standards. What I have done through creating topics is allowed myself to do standards tagging, quasi-standards tagging. Google Classroom doesn't allow that currently. And so what I've done is taken our North America Division standards and aligned them to Common Core standards. In math, Common Core standards are ubiquitous. If you go to most databases and you're creating assessments, Common Core is going to be available. So it's helpful to know not just what standard set am I working in, but how does it correlate to Common Core. So you can see here, 8.go.1, I have summarized that as congruence and similarity. And that correlates to the following Common Core standards. It's a quick reference for me. The kids still see this, and so they get the idea of what the overall topic is, so it makes sense to them. They could care less about the little tags here. But when you're creating an assignment, it allows you through the topics to tag it. So I find that to be a really quick and easy way to tag my standards. And then I can also see as we come to the end of the year, if I'm light in a certain standard, I haven't covered it enough, I need to hit it more, because they're grouped by standard in essence. So let's take a look here at one particular lesson. We're going to just dive into 3.4 similar triangles and take a look. I have to go into edit mode to show you this, so you can kind of take a look around at what the kids are seeing and what I'm putting in here. I try to standardize everything. I highly recommend it. You might have a totally different flow, that's fine, but the students need to be used to the way you do things in order to get the biggest bang for your buck. So I always have my chapter and lesson. I'll give it a name, what we're doing, and if we're doing an IXL activity or something else like that, I actually put the short code for the activity. So it's all in the title. It's easy to find. Kids can get in there quickly. And I try to keep my descriptions short for math. I think some other subjects you might want longer descriptions, history, English, things like that. But I like it to be short and concise because I like them to know what are they learning today. And so whether you're using I can statements, which I've somewhat transitioned to, but this particular lesson here doesn't have it, I'm going to state the expectations. And so we start by taking notes. We go to join a group jam in IXL. They're going to complete the assignment with a SMART score of at least 90. And you can see over here the point value I've assigned is 90. So in IXL, on this particular assignment, if they got an 87, it'd be an 87 out of 90. So it's easy to enter your scores. I'm going to state the learning objectives and then remind them to refer to their learning resources. So we have 1, 2, 3 video links, demonstration videos they can refer to on how to. They have my notes. Those are the notes from class. If you saw the previous episode here, episode 1, we went through screencasting. I shared Notability and how the students utilize that, and I use it in class. And then a direct link to the IXL activity. You can see the topic is tagged. To make this live, all I'd have to do is give it a due date. Don't have to put a time and hit assign. Students receive it. This also creates an email report for parents. So anytime an assignment is given, parents in Google Classroom can get a daily or a weekly summary of their students' assignments. And so they don't even have to log in. They just get an automatic email. Students see the objectives and have their resources right there. And I ask myself, what else would I really want to do beyond this in terms of a lesson plan? I have my flow, my objectives, my resources, and it allows me to just dive in and keep it very focused.
I want to go ahead and share about Schoology. So Schoology is the one that I use. Google Classroom is probably almost certainly the most popular learning management system out there. But Schoology is the one I've been using since before Google Classroom was a thing. And it's got a lot of similar features. It's got, I think, a little more power to it and can do a few more things. So you can see on my screen share, I've created an example course to do this. And so I just copied over one of my courses I've been teaching. This is 10th grade Bible from the Seventh-day Adventist Encounter Bible curriculum. And so I have my syllabus linked out right here, which is just a Google Doc that I go over with them and print out for them. If you know about Encounter, they have a transformational planning framework is how each unit is organized. And we do weekly memory verse quizzes, and then these are the units we have for this school year. For this unit. You also can post updates notes. And so I'll post here's this week's memory verse, or don't forget to work on your project, or, whatever it is that helps them to stay up to date with things. Or here, we watch this video in class. It might not be part of my core content, but, so they have access to something that we talked about, or, some resource there. But I'm going to jump into the Hosea unit. And this is kind of organized by unit and then chapters. They don't have that in this curriculum, but this is where I would have my units, or this would be a unit, and then this would be a chapter. And then if you're watching the screen recording, you'll see that I clicked into a section, and I actually teach straight from my learning management system. Both of us talked about using our learning management systems in ways they're not intended. And this is something I feel really passionate and excited about, is that my class on my screen almost the whole time is the learning management system. So anything we're discussing, I have on the screen through the learning management system, images and discussions and Bible verses and links and videos. I play my videos straight through there. And yeah, all sorts of assignments. We have, let's say, even things like presentations. So I can embed a presentation from Google Slides or Canva. It's not looking very good here. If I enter in full screen, I don't know if that'll work. I don't think it works while I'm recording. And so I can present straight from there. And then if you, let's see, I want to show, I will also have discussions. So I use the discussion so they can see each other's notes and see what they respond. And that's been a very helpful thing. The assignments, you talk about the descriptions. I usually don't leave very detailed descriptions on the assignments, because most of my assignments are linking out to Google Docs, and they make a copy of that Google Doc, and that is their assignment. So yeah, I hope that helped to see how we organize our learning management systems and teach from it. Schoology does have the standards alignments, but I haven't got into using it. I need to do it. I think that is a very powerful
It's coming,
tool.
Desmond.
I need to do it. I just need to spend the time to make it happen. So I guess kind of the central theme of learning management systems is that you don't have to use them for everything. If you have younger students, it might not be as helpful. And then if you have older students, it is a very powerful tool to be able to organize your content so the students know where everything is. When I come to using technology, really any tool in the classroom, even if it was a textbook, one of the things that I try to keep in mind, and the learning management system helps me do this, is how can I remove friction? So when we're transitioning from one thing to the next, if it takes me 5 minutes to transition, or even 2 minutes, then it really disrupts. Yes, you lose class time, but more importantly, it disrupts the learning you've already built up. The students have forgotten what you're just talking about. You introduce the idea, and then you're like, all right, now we're going to go to this thing. And 5-10 minutes later, you're in there. Not only have you wasted time, the students are probably frustrated, you're frustrated, the whole learning flow, they've forgotten what you were talking about. And so the learning management system allows them to more easily know where everything is. And I don't have to go to everyone's computer and be like, here's how you do it. It's there. And so, yeah, that's another very powerful tool.
Listening to you talk as well, just want to highlight, the accessibility element too of LMSs. You have students who struggle with focus, who may not be getting good sleep at night, or it's more of a perpetual thing. it really doesn't matter what the struggle is. The accommodation element of an LMS, things are centralized. You can read it. When you're submitting a lot of the platforms, you can dictate in. You talked about kind of the interactive nature of it. I didn't highlight that in Google Classroom. It's honestly super basic. Schoology has a lot more to it. But the bottom line is what I'm sharing in class goes home with the students. And that alone makes it such a student-friendly environment. It brings clarity to parents, and it just brings accountability across the board. The last thing I'll say that I love this about an LMS, it allows me year over year, the end of the year, to copy a class and create next year's class, not because I'm just going to reteach the same thing, but I have approached it as I'm going to take what I did last year and improve upon it. I'm either finding better resources, mixing up some of my lessons, adding resources to pre-existing lessons, or cleaning up my language and communication with the students. So it's this continual improvement element, but I'm starting with everything I did last year as my starting point this year. I'm not starting from zero, which a lot of teachers do.
Yeah. That is a very powerful thing to be able to continue to build, and you're not just reinventing everything. Like, what did I do last year here? Another little, I guess, happy side effect in Schoology is that it saves last time you taught its due date, which can be a pain. Like, I have to go in and like make sure it doesn't show overdue for all the students, and I have to remember how to do that each year. But and I think there's a shortcut to make that work better. However, I kind of like having the due dates in there because I can see where I am on pace from the last time I taught it, and so I know a lot of teachers do a great job of recording, where they were at, but this is a good way of me seeing when I'm going to assign an assignment. Oh, I was ahead or behind from the last time I taught it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at this time, I'm excited about our guest. So let's go ahead and cut over to our guest, Kim Christianson. All right. Thank you, Kim, for joining us. I am, as we are looking for guests for this episode, we focused so much on the learning management system, and we really wanted a perspective that wasn't Google Classroom or Schoology heavy, and ironically, our guest actually uses both. But I was overhearing, a couple weeks ago, or no, actually, it's a few days ago, a week ago or so, some of my 7th and 8th grade students talking about how much they appreciated Kim Christianson's or Mrs. Christianson to them website and they thought it was so cool. And I loved it because I love it when the students think something a teacher is doing is cool, but also like I got to tell them, hey, in this class, I'm going to teach you how to do that very soon. But then a few days later, I heard one of our coworkers who has a kid in her class talk about how helpful and useful her website is, and just told, I think it was during a staff meeting, Kim. She just, came out and said, hey, your website is so awesome. Thank you so much for it. It's such a helpful resource. And as she was saying it, I was like, wait a minute, that fits exactly with what we're talking about on our episode. And so then I invited Kim to come join us. And it fits nicely with what we're talking about. So I want to, Kim Christianson teaches as a homeroom teacher for 3rd and 4th grade at Richmond Academy. And she also teaches 5th through 8th history. She's a rock star teacher. And Kim, anything else that we should know about what you do? I stole the question.
That's all right. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this podcast. This is my 9th year teaching at Richmond Academy. Teaching is my second career. I have a bachelor's in theater, which ironically prepares you for teaching.
Oh, yeah.
And I also have a master's in education with a emphasis on instructional technology, with the caveat that was in 2005. So a lot has changed since then.
Well, all three of us have like the same master's degree. So I love this.
And it's kind of rare. So that's super cool.
Yeah. When my husband was in the Army, that's what I did when he was deployed for a year. He finished his bachelor's when he could have class while he was fighting a war. And I took it to help make up some of my free time that I had when he was gone. I wasn't a mother yet, so I had a lot of free time. So like I said, this is my 9th year teaching. I started teaching as a pre-K teacher, and I learned very quickly how dependent or how important it is for a parent and a teacher to have a strong relationship. They're trusting you with their babies, and this is the first experience in most cases that they've been at school for all day. So I gleaned a lot from that 2-year experience. And when I moved into 3rd and 4th grade, although you want to build a stronger, I think I skipped a question. I think I'm going straight into your question.
You're good. Keep going. Keep going.
I'm sorry. So what I learned from that transition from pre-K to 3rd and 4th grade is that although I want the students to be independent, there is still a huge need and a desire from both the parent and the teacher to make sure that what's happening in the classroom gets communicated back home.
So that's perfect segue into our first real question here. So you obviously have experience with Schoology and Google Classroom, from what I understand. How does that relate to your website, which I'm excited to hear about, and how has that impacted and changed your teaching? So
the big thing is to build relationships, not only with the teacher, but with the student to teacher, but to the teacher, to the student, to the parent. And what I found is that things get lost in translation, at least when you're looking at a 3rd grader who is excited about their learning, but doesn't necessarily always know how to communicate what they're learning in the classroom. Also, this year teaching middle schoolers, they're starting to lose a little bit of that passion, or they're just not focused on it. They're more focused on socialization. So I found that the classroom website has enabled us to make sure that there is a clear picture of what's happening in the classroom at home to the parents.
That's really cool. And so I guess building on that again, can you tell us a specific time when that has been, the website has worked well for your class?
Yes. So a lot of it has to go back to test takings and getting study skills ready. Being an Adventist teacher, a lot of your parents are also your church members and your family members in this tight-knit community that we have. So a lot of parents have my phone number. So I would get texts and questions which were related directly to school. And I thought, well, why not make this easier on them? It's something's getting lost in the translation from the student to home. So I thought the classroom website would be a good way to help those things, to help parents know what's going on and where to access things. So I post study guides that are needed along with the test dates. I post spelling words that they need for the week, memory verses. And then there's also resources such as if your child is having trouble reading, where can I go? So I link to sites like Reading Rockets and Kids A to Z, where they can get additional practice, or IXL. So all of that is located in one spot, so it makes it easy for the parents to find. It minimizes the amount of text that I'm getting on my personal phone, and it also allows the student to access that information if they happen to lose the paper copy that I give them.
That's awesome. It sounds like a real mashup, almost like you're creating your own little LMS within a class website or webpage where you centralize your resources. And I can definitely see the relationship here between this episode on LMSs and your classroom websites. What I love too is you're teaching at that lower end. Desmond and I spent a few minutes talking about how does an LMS apply from lower elementary up through high school. And it's definitely very different. And it sounds like you're kind of working in this little transitional phase where they're just getting into technology, but the goal is really it's centralizing resources, making it accessible to students and parents. And that's how these things really do dovetail well together. So I'm going to ask another question here,
Okay.
Kim. What technology do you use and what do you recommend for making your classroom website?
So I used Google Sites to make my website, and I am a big fan of using social media as a way to collaborate with other teachers. As I don't know if that's a popular view, but what I have found is that it is an excellent way for teachers across the nation to connect with each other and help each other out. So many teachers are feeling
Absolutely.
overloaded and overwhelmed, and there are teachers out there that are posting information, tutorials even, on how to do things. So I found a great tutorial on YouTube, and then I watched that a few times, and over my Christmas break a couple of years ago, I built the website on Google Sites. Google Sites makes it very easy, but the tutorials that she posted allowed me to learn some neat tricks to really make it mine and really not make it some template that had just been pulled up. And I love, there's a classroom management website that I also use called Classroom Screen. I can share my screen and show you what that looks like if you would like.
That'd be great.
I use this every day. This is classroomscreen.com. And this allows me to tell the students if they can, if they need to be silent, if they can whisper, if they can talk to one another. I also have the clock here, and I can have it digital or analog. I use both because my 3rd and 4th graders are learning to use the clock. I can change the background. I have a timer here, and every morning when they come in, it shows them a to-do list of what they need to do along with the date. And then there's also a way that I recently in 5th and 6th grade, I put in all of my students' name on this side in the blue screen. And then they were assigned an historical figure during the industrial age. So this geared the child up. You know, you click on the random selector. Sorry, that's really loud. And then it
That's all right.
matches them up with a person. So I was overwhelmingly, and there are a ton, this is a free website, but you can also pay $25 a year, I think it is, to have access to all. So I paid the $25 because I found it's very helpful. But there are a ton of options on this, but my main source is this right here because it gives the students a it gives them time management and voice management.
And every time I walk by your classroom, I see it pulled up there. And that sounds like a very useful tool to kind of like bring in that classroom management element using the technology. That's very good.
I also use Blookit and iExcel to help students prepare for testing, or to just see where they are with their skills. Especially, we're learning multiplication in 3rd and 4th grade, so they need to practice that fluency. So I can use the quizzes in iExcel or the group jams, which are, if you don't know what a group jam is, you need to check it out because it's a wonderful resource for the kids and it allows the kids to interact.
That's what I tell everybody too.
I think we have an upcoming episode on that. Aaron can't stop talking about it.
Wait.
And, you know, if you have all subject levels, which IXL has that capability, it really opens the door to what you're going to use it for.
That's fantastic. All right, moving on a little different direction, but I think is also a very important thing that unfortunately, a lot of teachers don't consider as much as they need to. It's become a bigger conversation at our school and a little beyond. But yeah, students' privacy, like on an LMS, we have a lot of students' data and stuff, and it's private. It's behind a login. But the way you have your website set up, you want the parents to be able to access it. but other people then could stumble upon it. So how do you consider your students' privacy on your website?
Well, Google Sites has the capability to lock down who has access to it by sharing it with a specific email address. So I have done that to allow only certain parents to access it. As of right now, though, I have it open because I don't have anything personal on the website. I do not post pictures.
Okay.
I do not post names. And any link that I have posted on the website requires a password to get into it. So there is a link to Google Classroom, but it requires the student to sign in. I am considering in the future, in my free time, possibly adding portfolios, student portfolios to the website. I would like to do that so that the parents and the students can see how they grow from the beginning to the end of the year. If I do that, that would be locked down. But as of right now, the best way for me to protect their privacy is to have nothing personal out there. I just make sure that it's information, even within my newsletter, which I use every week, and that's posted on the website. There's no, there's no really identifying information on there that could lead somebody that happens to come across the website to a particular child.
Very good. And that consideration, I think, is what is really important, is that to look through that lens of what do I need to keep password protected? What can I have public? Because you want easy access to the people who need it, but you don't want other people who don't need it to have access to it.
Yeah, and this isn't what we're talking about today, but it also just is a wise thing to do, to be aware of your media releases and who you have media releases on and who you don't, and then during that registration process, making sure you get it so that it's you have clarity on what you can publish. So a quick question for you here, Kim. You've talked a little bit about how you use your website, and I'm getting a really good picture of it. It seems like it's just a natural fit for the age of students you're teaching, and then the parents as well. How would a small school teacher start using a website? If you were starting over, small school setting, and for those of you that don't teach or have never taught in a small school setting, understand the magnitude of responsibilities our small school teachers have when you're teaching multi-grade. And sometimes that's as many as 6 grades in one classroom. I've been there. I don't know if you guys have been there.
Thankfully.
I had grades 3 to 8 in a prior teaching responsibility, and I loved it. However, back to the question, how would you use a website like you do now, but in that environment, if you were starting up there?
So I think it would be just a great point to say, okay, kids, go to this website, click on this link, and give me 10 minutes of practice on iExcel. Or go to Kids A to Z, it's linked there for you, and start your tasks for the day while I work in small groups. I'm a teacher that loves using small groups. So in order for that to happen, the rest of the students in the classroom have to have something to do. And sometimes that can be center time where they're working together, but I currently have 23 students in my classroom, and even if they're trying very hard to keep quiet, it gets noisy very quickly. So having the website where they can easily find everything they need and get to it without my interaction is a godsend. And I do want to, the direction of the question that you just asked me, in my brain, I took it a totally different direction. So I just want to answer that, because I was thinking, how does a small school teacher have the time to build a website? And I just,
that too.
I just want to tell you, if you keep it simple, and if you just focus on what are your primary needs first, and then you can always add and build onto it. Once you get that template, once you get things set the way you want, you can always make it bigger and larger, better as you go on. But just start simple, and again, look for those tutorials, because there are so many teachers out there that are willing to share their knowledge with you.
I love that. And, I love the you brought up another theme we were talking about earlier, is that reducing the friction. There's a lot of technology introduces friction to both the lesson planning and the instruction. So focusing on how to reduce friction instead of increasing it, I think is a very powerful use of this. One last question. And you shared a little of this earlier, so you can repeat what you said earlier or add additional, but what other resources around this would you like to point teachers to?
Check in on Instagram to just follow other educators. I love seeing other people's ideas. Check in on, Classroom Screen is a great free resource for teachers to use to help them keep just management, and also there's some fun things in there too. There is a website that Adventist Education uses called Reach. That is a great website for teachers to use as well as parents. If you have a child,
and I want to pause. That's public resources, so anyone can access that. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. It is very well developed and probably underutilized, except for when it is utilized, it is fantastic.
So I've got it up. I can share my screen to show you how wonderful it is. It tells you can click on how to use it in the classroom. So what this is it's a way to help provide resources for struggling students. Whether you suspect that there might be a learning disability, or maybe there's executive functioning issues that they're having. So there is things that you can use in the classroom at the elementary and secondary level. And there's also early childhood education as well as planning. Professional growth, if you want to learn more about how to use these resources. In the classroom, when you go to elementary, if your child is having behavioral problems or math problems, everything you click on will take you to another site that has links. And you can see these are very specific, has difficult solving story problems, doesn't remember math facts. And then when you click on those, it gives you strategies and resources to help. So if you have not checked out that site, that is a great site to help your students or help your child figure out what they need to grow in their learning and behavioral everyday life.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Kim. You've given us a lot of very useful information, and I want to encourage all you listening. If you're not using an LMS and or a classroom website, think about how to reduce friction. Think about how you can increase communication with both the parents and the students. And we hope that this has been a big help. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on today's journey into EdTech Unpacked as we explored how to use LMSs to enhance your classroom experience.
We were blessed to share about how we've used Google Classroom and Schoology, and to have our guest, Kim Christianson, share about how she's used her classroom website to enhance learning. And I thought it was really cool how we had very similar themes between all of us, where we saw how the LMS can increase accessibility to all of your students, and it can also reduce friction of the learning experience. And finally, as a great communication tool between you and your parents about what you're learning.
Yep. And don't forget to send your EdTech problems that we'll solve in future episodes to our help desk. And you can do that by visiting our website at edtechunpack.com, where you can either submit an audio recording that we may even play on a future episode, or use our contact form.
And please don't let this or any other technology overwhelm you. Remember that they are just tools to enhance what you're already amazing at. You are a teacher for a reason. God has blessed you with abilities and skills to touch the lives of these students. You look at this as another tool that you can use to enhance areas and to reduce friction. Don't feel like you have to do it all. Don't feel like you have to be amazing in the first time. Use what works. You are a great teacher. Keep doing it. And remember that there is no substitute for great teaching. It's not just about the tools and technology that you use, but about how you foster meaningful relationships with your students and transform their lives. Blessings, and have a great week.